Hello, everyone. My name is Aseet Patel. I'm here with ILTA, the International Technology Legal Technology Association, and I'm co-organizing this panel with my co-sponsor, Cole-Frieman. Kat and I came up with the title of Garbage In, AI Genius Out is a Fallacy. Is your tech collecting dust? Fix adoption before buying AI. In particular, when we were thinking about this title and the topic, we thought of a beautiful house, a massive mansion sitting on quicksand. And that's essentially what we feel many law firms and companies are doing when they attempt to buy AI without considering some of the fundamentals that you need before you can truly make use of AI. For example, good data hygiene, ensuring user adoption through change management, various governance and policy issues, and also staffing and understanding the changes that are required. So without further ado, I wanted to just introduce our panel. We've put together a fantastic panel of 6 people from various parts of the ecosystem. The first panelist is Brian Emfinger. Brian is a partner at Banner Witcoff. And I'll move on to the slide here. There we go. Brian is a partner at Banner Witcoff in the Chicago office. He brings over 15 years of experience in intellectual property law. Brian counsels clients on their strategic worldwide patent portfolio development, and his experience spans cutting-edge technologies including video coding and telecommunications, aerospace, cybersecurity, industrial automation, and many, many more. Brian brings a critical dual perspective to our discussion today on AI readiness. He is not only a seasoned attorney, but also a former software developer with a computer science background from Georgia Tech. He understands the code behind the curtain. I had the esteemed pleasure of working alongside Brian as a partner at Banner Witcoff before I began my startup journey. Welcome, Brian. It's great to collaborate with you again.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Second, we have Dave Rothschild. Dave is a partner at Cole-Frieman and Mallon. Dave brings a critical perspective to our discussion today as he co-leads his firm's internal AI committee, helping navigate policy and adoption for their investment management clients. Beyond his legal practice, Dave is also a prolific creator. He is the host of Tokens of Wisdom podcasts, where he has published nearly 80 episodes on the cutting edge of crypto fund formation. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Next on our panel is Gary Simon, Director of Training at Alston and Bird in their Atlanta office. Gary has excelled for 25 years at Alston and Bird, demonstrating success in developing and delivering the following training: executive, leadership, management, customer service, and technical. In addition, Gary has implemented and managed numerous learning management systems and is currently part of the team introducing AI technologies to the firm. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Next, we welcome Kedar Kulkarni from Lowenstein Sandler, where he is a manager of endpoint engineering. With over 20 years of experience, Kedar is a true architect of the digital workplace. He specializes in the heavy lifting required to make technology scalable and user-friendly. He is known for mitigating operational risk while leading multifaceted IT acquisitions and transitions. Impressively, Kedar recently executed a forward-thinking cloud-first strategy that resulted in a massive 30% reduction in IT costs. We are fortunate to have Kedar's perspective. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Next in our panel is Michelle Spencer, a legal tech strategist at NetDocuments. Michelle has deep expertise in helping legal professionals navigate innovation. At NetDocuments, she focuses on making legal work easier through intelligent document management, AI-enhanced workflows, and secure cloud solutions. Michelle is a frequent speaker and advocate for practical legal tech adoption, and she brings a practitioner's mindset and decades of experience within law firms seeking smarter ways to work. Great to have you, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
Rounding out our panel is Tom Kearns, a partner at the law firm of Olshan, Frome, Wolosky. Tom brings the perspective of AI adoption at a mid-sized firm. He serves on his firm's AI investigatory committee and has kicked the tires with several vendor pitches. When Tom isn't looking at tech, he's an accomplished deal maker. Tom closed an impressive property sale for a client that M&A Advisor magazine named Private Equity Deal of the Year. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks, Aseet. Happy to be here.
So we'd like to kick off our session with 4 questions. The first is about data and the importance of data and data hygiene. So is your data creating quicksand? I'd like to kick it off with anyone on the panel that would like to provide some perspective on some of the issues that you see on the screen at the moment.
I'll start. I think it's a very good way to look at why the data consistency really matters and why data hygiene is important. Because just like any tool, right, success of AI depends on the data quality, and if the data quality is not good, you are not going to get a good output. Let's say if, legal professionals, if they are saving client-specific data on their desktops, shared drives, or mislabeling documents in DMS, the AI is not going to simply, fix them. It won't be able to index them or retrieve that document clearly. So the effectiveness of AI, it's really, depends on the foundation, which is our, DMS and the data governance. So let's say if document is tagged with a wrong date or wrong jurisdiction, the AI may provide an answer that is legally sound but factually irrelevant. So in a way, you are amplifying the very problem AI is supposed to solve. So I think what you should do is, you should clearly look at how are you onboarding the application, right? So the recent ILTA survey finding reveals underutilization of all licensed technology in daily legal practice, and this gap usually starts very early. Now, every firm has its own operational model, and if the new hires aren't made aware of it, that what they are going to do is they are going to fall back on their habits that they already know. And once those habits are set in stone, it's very difficult to undo them or change them and put them back on the right track. So at our firm, Lowenstein Sandler, we address this right on from the day one, right, onboarding, and with the help of continuous training events. We have very robust training programs. The new hires and the staff are trained on firm-wide filing practices and the client-specific requirements from day one. Our KM and the research team also schedules numerous training events for existing and the new tools and make sure they are used properly. And back in IT, we manage and track the usage of each tool. So if you don't put proper guardrails, the data lake is soon or quickly will become data swamp.
Kedar, hi, it's Tom Kearns. I agree with you completely. The one thing I want to say to everybody, though, is from a law firm perspective, everybody's data is messy. And we've had issues with this because we had some pretty interesting products, but they would search our existing database of related documents. And of course, we have litigators in the house, so we have documents that are used in being litigated over that are bad. We have our forms that are good. And one of the things that we struggled with is keeping sort of the good forms and the bad forms away from each other for these AI products. And frankly, it's a work in progress. And one of the things we're looking at is sort of setting up vaults or special rooms in the different products that we're using, with some success, but it's been a struggle. So anybody who's listening to this, Kedar is completely right. Your data should be excellent, but as a practical matter, you got to figure out ways to live with it when it's messy.
I agree completely. I think it goes to core data management principles. The challenge isn't just having the documents, it's where they are, what tools you have to work with them. And AI can help with that. One of the things that we've incorporated into our platform is AI profiling, where it pulls out not just the key data things like doc type or subtype, but also extracts key data points. So that really also helps with AI adoption as well. But if your data, to your point, is scattered all over the place, if you've never had information governance and haven't archived any matters ever, which I know being precedent-based, as lawyers, we like to hang on to everything, but this is where that can really be a problem. And a major risk is exposing data that was unintended. So if you turn AI loose on a file store without proper access controls, guardrails, that risks really surfacing confidential partnership information or sensitive client data to the wrong internal users. And this happened a lot when firms got Copilot, and it indexed all of their intranet content that was stored in SharePoint. All of a sudden, everything became searchable, which created some issues. So the technology has to also, from a practical standpoint, work within the firm's existing workflows and tools. If you're trying to add on a bunch of point solutions all over the place, and you're then having to move data to yet another place, it's going to kill your workflows. It's going to slow people down, and it's going to just multiply and magnify your data governance issues that you may already have. Consequently, if data is trapped inside legacy systems or silos where the AI can't get at it, that's also going to create issues for you. And so you need tools that are going to be interoperable with those existing systems and across systems as well. That's one of the things that's been a big part of our tenets as kind of the DMS provider, the keeper of a lot of a firm's data, is we want to make it possible for them to be able to use their data with other tools as well.
It seems that a pervasive issue, regardless of size of firm, is the data. And so I wonder if, Michelle, from your perspective of having worked with small and large firms of all sizes, and then Tom and Kedar from being different size firms, one being large, one being mid-size, do you see anything that's specific to a certain firm size advice that you can give with respect to this data hygiene issue that we're talking about? And everyone has messy data, but is there some things that you've identified over time that you think may be helpful to the audience to hear about?
Sure, this is Tom. I'm happy to go first. We're a mid-sized firm. We do not have a huge quote-unquote knowledge management department. What we have tried to do is, particularly I'm in the real estate department, partner in the real estate department, we have kept a segregated folder of sort of forms that we like, that we keep a database that are either forms that we have used or we have been negotiated with us or otherwise, or sometimes even come from 4 books. Keep it in sort of one place, so we have sort of one place where we can go for resource on that. And that's we haven't yet figured out how. And we've signed up with a couple of the big AI tools. We haven't yet quite figured out how to coordinate that with our AI products, but we're working on it.
Tell you the thing that that really was an educator for me. The last firm that I was with, we had what ended up being a 2-year project to do complete information governance top to bottom. And I did not realize all of the rules around record retention. So specific things like if it involves a minor, documents have to be maintained for a certain time. You have to keep things for the pendency of contracts and things like that in a lot of instances. And so that can really create quite a can of worms from a data management perspective. But once you understand those things and have that in place, then you can really start to kind of cull out that bad data. And so I think it's really worthwhile looking at where are all the places we have data? How is the fact that data is all spread in all these other places slowing people down? And then what effect is that going to have when we start throwing AI tools on top of things?
Yeah, I kind of agree with both of you. The common complaint that everybody says these days is, right, it's I search, the search tool doesn't work properly, and I don't get the expected results. So is it, at the back of, do you have to really think, is it the search tool not giving you the data properly, or the data underneath is not in sync with how it's supposed to be, right? So keeping that the process, it's a cyclical process. I think you have to make sure you follow all your standards. You keep on training people. You keep on making sure that everything is in accordance with the governance and the rules that you have put in place. And I think that's how we have to make sure it moves forward.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into our next question, and that's about users and user adoption. Kedar mentioned just now that not only is it about the data, but it's also about training folks and keeping up with them. So our next question for the panel is about combating shelfware and increasing adoption, specifically user adoption. So I'd love to open it up to the panel. Brian, if you'd like to kick it off with some of your thoughts.
Sure. Yeah. I can bring the perspective of maybe an end user for a lot of these tools and reflecting on how and why I adopt new tools in the course of my work activities. By far, the most effective approach has been when our IT department tells me that an old tool is being retired by some deadline and everyone is being moved to a new tool starting on some specific date. So, for example, access to the old tool is being cut off on Friday, and on Monday, everyone will have access to the new tool. Now, that works fine for tools that I have to use. For example, migrating from a desktop application to a browser-based application. But as far as adopting third-party tools, it can be more hit or miss. And one common theme that I've observed in reflecting why I might be either hesitant or reluctant or just late in adopting those third-party tools is really understanding how I would incorporate them into my specific workflow and the way that I do things. And it's not to say that I'm not impressed with the tools. The demos always look good. The output looks slick. But I've always been left with the question of how am I going to use this in my actual day-to-day practice? What will change about my approach to leverage this tool that I'm being presented with? And perhaps more importantly, how much working time am I going to need to give up to figure all of that out? And so, for example, at this stage in my career, I've developed approaches and habits that work for me, that allow me to be efficient. But just that unknown of how long will it take me to get savvy enough with this tool to achieve at least the same level of efficiency, that has seemed to be a big factor in me choosing to devote the time I would need to get over that initial learning curve. So if I'm faced with the choice of the path of what I know about how long something is going to take versus the path of what I don't know, to use the tool most effectively, more often than not, I'm just going to fall back on choosing that known path. So one of the challenges that I see for third-party service providers is how to get more senior attorneys that might be more set in their ways to give up those habits, give up what feels safe and comfortable, and be open to changing their approach to include some of these new tools. And I think the problem is even more challenging given that individual attorneys have their own unique workflows. So if you've got 100 attorneys, even if they're all at the same firm, you've got 100 different workflows that need to be updated to incorporate these tools. And my firm, for example, is an IP boutique firm. So we only handle IP matters. But even though we all handle the same type of law, and we might generally be aligned in our philosophical approach to those issues, and that type of work, the way that I draft a patent application or a response to an office action might be completely different than my neighbor. So the point being to help increase rates of adoption and acceptance from where I sit as the end user, working with individual attorneys to identify opportunities to improve their particular approach, their unique workflow is going to be more effective than whatever demos or presentations that I can sit in on that might be one size fits all.
Sorry, let me unmute. I think that's a fantastic point because that's exactly what I'm seeing at the firm I work at. Traditionally, training attorneys, staff on applications, take Word, for example. You want to bold something, select some words, press the B. It's going to work the same way for everybody. And everyone knows, oh, that's how I use that. That's just the click and you do this thing. The AI technologies aren't like that. Like you said, people need them for different reasons. And so as people introducing them to the firm, like I'm trying to do, I have to meet them where they're at. I can't have them come. It's not about me saying, click this and it'll do this, click this and it'll do this. It's more about, tell me what you're trying to accomplish. And then we try to figure out which of the AI tools can do that. And then within that, let's talk about how you work. What is your workflow? Because you're right, even within the same practice group, I find different attorneys have different workflows, different ways they go about things, different forms they use in some cases. The other thing that is just fundamentally different about adopting this firm-wide is I'm finding that once people have a few initial bad experiences or failures, hey, it's not giving me back what I'm looking for. They're kind of going, oh, I guess this isn't for me, or I'll wait for a while till this gets better. And so what we do is, this is for the first time ever, it used to be, here's a new app or here's an upgrade, here's some training on it. Then we kind of forget about it, and because people know how to use it. We are now doing for adoption for AI tools, continuous training. Everybody has to have an initial 2 hours of training, no matter who you are at Alston or where I work. You get 2 hours and one of those hours is me demoing things to you, things in your practice area, in your department that you might do. Then we have different sets of tools we sent every couple weeks, every week. Here's something you could do with this. Here's something you could do with this. Kind of use cases. And we take them from other attorneys. Attorney will say something to me, hey, can this do this? I'll work on it with them and I'll say, this was a great use of AI. Would you mind if I shared this with the rest of the firm during one of the emails I send out? And then that's the way we're kind of trying to get all the knowledge in ways that can be used effectively and practically across the board. So I'm with you 100% on everything you were saying about that.
I 1000%, as a former training manager at a law firm for a long time, totally agree with you, Gary. This one is really different. We've a little bit taken a flip the script approach. And one of the first tools we introduced was an app builder. And we quickly realized people were not ready to incorporate AI into building apps beyond the basic functions like summarizing and things like that. Shortly after that, released an AI assistant and thought, having worked in law firms for decades, how many times do people have to ask questions where the answers reside in documents, right? Or across multiple documents? We thought, oh, this should be pretty easy for people to pick up. We rapidly found that our professional services folks needed to spend some time with these firms to really help their adoption, to help them understand the constraints of AI, because law firms deal with big documents, things like that, and then understanding, to Brian's point, the use cases that are going to be dead on for one person may not work for another. And then the other approach we've since taken is kind of flipping the script and having the technology solve some of the core adoption problems that have existed in the DMS for a long time. So the first is using AI to profile the documents for them. So if AI extracts out these data points and tags them automatically, then the administrative burden on attorneys and their legal teams drops. And that's going to drive adoption in the DMS, because all of a sudden the attorneys have the ability to search all over these rich data points or use this extracted data to power really amazing AI workflows and automation for doing things like due diligence and reusing things with those golden templates that were referenced earlier. The other thing that's been a problem that was referenced earlier too is search in the DMS. And so now all of a sudden we have all this rich data that's structured where it used to be unstructured. That can be used in combination with AI-enabled search, where attorneys are able to search for concepts now really easily. They don't have to know all these Boolean search terms and do keyword searching and all of that. And so it starts to build that rich experience and see possibilities for what can happen using AI, I think. And so by providing these kind of more core, simple tools, then that starts to be able to get people to the point where they're going to hit the wall of what they can do with the AI search tools and summarizations and the assistants. And then they're going to want to put in the time to build those workflows out.
Yeah, so this is Tom. We couple of points. One is on the most of these tools have reports as to who's using them. So we tend to have the carrot versus the stick approach. So if people, particularly partners, raise their hand and want to be on and want a license and want to be on these tools, you can figure out how often they've used it and kind of go back. Hey, you asked to be on this. There's a cost to this. You haven't done it in 3 months. You want training? You want help? You want other things? Another thing that happens, what we have, for example, a department meeting, short one every week, and I've been sort of prompting people, what are we using it for? What are people finding? What's working? What's not working? And then I think what happens is when, for example, the lease abstract, we currently use one of the tools, and it's able to do lease abstracts pretty well. Once you hear that other people are doing that and it works pretty well, boy, that really saves a lot of time. And it's a client service. Okay, so then you get everybody to do lease abstracts. The other thing I've been trying to do is to have people sort of think about client development sort of things. For example, it's very hard for us to do small leases in Manhattan, small office leases economically, right? 2,000 feet, 5,000 feet, that kind of thing. If we could figure out a way to put our templates and to put some clauses into the right engine in the right spot, we might be able to go to a client and say, hey, we couldn't do your leases efficiently before. You've been doing them in-house. They're kind of messy. Let us do it. We have this new tool, and you can price it accordingly. I do a lot of LLC agreements. LLC agreements are very expensive legal fee-wise. There's got to be a way to get more of the middle market and smaller businesses. If we could sort of automate some of that stuff, how do we do that? And so those are kind of some of the ideas that we're encouraging people to think about.
I completely agree with you, Tom. Coming from a smaller firm, we don't have the benefit of having someone, like Gary, a head of training to really kind of shoulder a lot of that task of figuring out how can this tool be more effectively used in your specific practice and then disseminate that knowledge out to the firm. So I think what we end up doing is having smaller group meetings. We have a handful of practice areas in our firm, and each practice area has their own meetings, usually monthly, but one piece of that meeting is going around the table and saying, okay, how have you been using whichever AI tools we're using, and what have you found to be most useful? And then we're kind of shouldering the burden of disseminating that information among ourselves. But we've gotten some really great ideas, and it tends to be it's often, in a kind of interesting twist of fate, it's often the younger associates who are maybe more tech savvy, who are figuring out interesting new uses for these tools and then pushing that up the ladder instead of top down.
Yeah, I mean, that raises a really great point, is that oftentimes in the past, user adoption was about convincing folks to use it. And it seems now the tide has almost shifted where there's almost a request from clients and from the attorneys asking to use certain AI tools because they hear their colleague is using it. And so one of the other large questions is about data governance and pilot programs. And oftentimes the issue is unlike some AI tool, some tech tools in the past where data wasn't really as so much of an issue, maybe in the cloud that was, and so there's some analogies to be drawn. But here with AI tools, how do you go about dealing with the issue that there is still data governance is still critical to any law function? And love to hear some thoughts on what you've done to put in place that kind of governance and policies.
Yeah, I think just before you started this topic, right? The panel is talking about the adoption of the tool, right? I mean, maybe one of the things that we should all think about is, are we asking the right questions when we are onboarding a new AI tool, right? Because everybody, we all are saying, the AI is used by everybody in a different manner. I look at AI as a resource. It's just like you have a first year associate, and if they are working with different attorneys, they are going to need to do work in a different fashion or different style, right? So I think just like you onboard people, you have to make sure you ask proper questions when you are onboarding these type of tools, right? How the AI tool is entering into our firm's ecosystem, where the data sits, is the tool training on your data, and who owns the output, who can access them, and based on that you can then figure out the proper boundaries, proper guardrails around the tool, and then make sure it's being treated properly. So the firms who are doing well, or treat this the AI onboarding similar to the vendor onboarding, or new user onboarding. I think we ask proper due diligence, have clear rules of engagement, and no assumptions, right? Ask questions and ask as many questions, different scenarios, to make sure it satisfies and follows your own rules. And mainly, in the legal industry, is the KM and IT are called as a so-called gatekeeper, right? And it's the intention of or the main rule of this IT and the KM resources is not to say no to all the tools, but you have to make sure we look at it properly, and then introduce these tools to the firm, right? You have to make sure they align with your data architecture. They have a proper access controls. The ethical walls requirements are being followed. And if you don't do that, you are going to introduce unnecessary risk into the environment. So I think the role of KM or IT in this case is not really just say no to the every tool, but you have to make sure you enable the right tools safely and introduce them to the firm.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think one of the things that our firm did early on once it became apparent that this new technology was here, and the universe of things it was able to do was just so different from a lot of what we've seen before, is we started a dedicated internal AI committee. And we kind of asked around lawyers, legal assistants, anybody at the firm, we're going to start this committee. Anybody who's interested in AI and how it's used and what it can do, feel free to join. And so I think, that led to a lot of participation, not only among attorneys, but among the rest of the staff at the firm. And it tended, again, to be some of the younger folks who were more interested in this and had more firsthand knowledge of how to use some of this stuff. But the committee initially was formed to investigate what tools are there out there that we could use as a firm that would make our work more efficient, or make quality of being an attorney here higher. And so that was one piece of it. And then another piece of it was very quickly and clearly evident, which is we need a set of internal policies that governs how people are using these tools. Because I've been an attorney for 15, 16 years now. And if I have a new legal question, one of the first places I'm going to go is I'm going to go Google, whatever the question is, and see where it leads me and start my search that way. I think AI is changing that paradigm entirely. And now you have, whether it's a legal specific tool, or whether you're using something more generalist like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever it might be, you're going in and you're asking a robot your specific question, and it is spitting out an answer. And if you're not being super diligent, I mean, we've all heard the horror stories of people going in and submitting entirely fake cases in pleadings before a court. If you're not being super diligent in reviewing the output of any AI, you might just use what it tells you and go off to the races and turn around and advise your client based on a hallucination from an AI tool. And so I think that's very clear to a lot of people who are, live and breathe the AI stuff on a daily basis. But to your average attorney who's all of a sudden given this new tool that is incredibly powerful, and you're given it by the firm itself, and all of a sudden you see what it can do, I think maybe the tendency might be to lean on the output of this AI more so than is ethical or prudent. And so making sure that you have those internal policies that tell people, okay, when you get this output from AI, here's what you have to do. You have to rigorously check sources. You have to go back through, it's not just ask question, get genius answer out. It's ask question, get answer, and then verify everything about that answer before you can turn around and use that as a basis for legal advice. And having those policies written down, clearly communicated to your firm and to all the attorneys who are using it, and in a way that makes sense to them and that they acknowledge they can follow, I think is super, super important. And the other thing we've been doing is periodic check-ins. I think we're doing them quarterly now, where we're looking at any AI tools we've onboarded. How is it being used? Who's using it? Is usage up? Is usage down? And then we can pretty quickly triangulate, oh, it looks like people aren't using XYZ tool this month. And why is that? And what's going on there? And it allows us to respond to swings in usage a little bit more quickly.
Dave, so I'm going to make an admission here. We've been relying on our younger lawyers. So I started paying attention to developments in the AI world several years ago. Of course, I didn't predict how it was going to unfold this way. But a while back, I created an email list of those of us who were sort of talking about it in the office. So we have Dave, probably the same email kind of list that you had, where we would all compare notes. And then as the younger people started to come on and ask about it, it sort of became clear as that it was something that the younger lawyers wanted to know. They were at a firm that understood this upcoming thing, and how are you all going to manage it? And then we turned around and said, okay, that's great. I'd like you to volunteer for this trial. And so I put the onus back on them and say, okay, the three of you, we have a relatively small department. The three of you need to be on this trial and help us and use it, et cetera. And we had some in our firm, and maybe in other firms on the line too. We also have a difference between the transactional lawyers and the litigators. And my fear is that the AI stuff has been better aimed at the litigators than the transactional lawyers, because I'm not quite feeling as much love as some of the products I've seen for litigators. But so targeting the younger lawyers, and then and making sure that our vendors are have the ability to give us sort of licenses by lawyer, and not requiring the entire firm to do it, so that we're targeting the right people. And then constantly having these discussions, Dave, like you talked about, with the hallucination issue, the ethical issues, the uploading confidential documents to a generative tool that is not part of the firm system. All those kind of just repeated, but just sort of talking through on a regular basis, but relying in large part. And the younger lawyers are coming to us and saying, you sent out a memo that said we shouldn't upload such and such to our tool. Isn't the whole purpose of the tool to be able to have confidential information on it? Oh yeah, right. Okay, so we changed the memo. So it's sort of an iterative process.
And I think that goes to understanding what's happening with the data, with the tool. One of the things that we had to do as an extra step beyond stuff isn't retained, it's not being used to train the model, we actually went and we use Azure OpenAI, so OpenAI through Microsoft. We went and got a specific exclusion because we know that the content that lawyers use is going to trigger sensitive content and abuse monitoring in some instances. And that's something that's done by both humans and machines on the back end. And so we had to say that can't happen with legal documents because we knew it would trigger those kind of systems. So there's that kind of thing. And then I think too, when you're talking about people and policies with AI, it's two kinds of people. It's those who are super excited about it and they're going to put everything in it. And then it's the people who are afraid of ending up in the news. at this point because it's been so widely reported. So I think you have to think about addressing your policies for both ends of the spectrum to overcome the fear and slow some people down a little bit.
I think those are really great points from Michelle and the rest of the panelists. I'm kind of curious, do you all see across the spectrum from small size firms to large size firms, is there a difference in how data governance, in particular data governance, is handled? So the example I can give is, I know oftentimes at law firms, each partner is treated almost like their own fiefdom. And for the longest time, they had the ability to say, I like this tool, I'm just going to pop out my credit card and use it. And as long as it didn't cause an IT issue, it didn't need to be logged and it didn't need to be installed, that they were able to get around that. And I feel like that's changed quite a bit. And I know several of you serve on AI governance committees and AI investigation committees. So I'm curious, has that really changed where it's no longer a free for all? You really need to be coordinated as a firm in order to protect your data and make sure these breaches don't happen. And I can analogize this probably closest to the cloud is that, with the cloud, there's also quite a bit of risk of potentially losing your data, having it out in the quote unquote cloud. So is that something that you can analogize to, and what is everyone's experience with that?
I guess maybe I could start on the low end of the size spectrum. I think that was an issue. The concern over that issue was at the top of our list when we first formed our AI committee, and one of the first pieces of our policy is that no attorneys here, whether partners or associates, can put confidential client information into an AI tool before it has gone through our, very technical vetting process of the details of which are a little over my pay grade. But, we have our IT team looking, evaluating these tools and getting our arms around the data security and confidentiality aspects of each tool. And then we have a list of tools that are approved for that kind of use, and anything that is not explicitly approved for that kind of use, we cannot put client confidential information into. And I think, in a lot of ways, your description of each partner operating as a mini fiefdom is pretty accurate in a lot of how our business runs, but not in this particular area.
And I can address from a larger firm perspective is our individuals don't even have administrative rights, so they can't even install a program on their own computer. It's got to be pushed out, or it's got to go to somewhere we make it available to them. Going back just to one of the things here, in our case, the governance and policy always comes first before we ever even go to pilot. That has to be established. And it goes through the entire bringing on of an AI tool, goes through an insanely rigorous security review, contractual review, where we involve not just IT people, but attorneys in that process. One of the other issues that's sprung up now is not just bringing in new AI tools, but think about all the applications we currently use. How many of them are now getting AI added into them? Hey, the next version is going to have this AI component. Well, that's causing us to go back and now review all of those tools once again. What is the AI doing? What is it exposing? And so it's become even that doubly now, reviewing these policies, the governance of all the different AI aspects that are becoming part of our firm at this point.
Yeah, completely agree with Gary and Dave. And the point you mentioned, Gary, that's very true, because it's not just a new feature now. Many tools have the integration capabilities, right? You can write APIs or use custom APIs and exchange data between the tools, whether it's an iManage or Vatera or any other tools that you have. You have to really make sure what type of data is being exchanged, and does it follow with your governance rules and the security and IT standards.
Yeah. And this is a great time to talk about our last question of the panel is about the human element. With AI, with some of this technological advancements happening, what are the staffing changes that you're seeing, not only from a attorney perspective, but also from a support perspective, the IT department, the paralegals, the secretaries? How are you seeing all of this change, and how does it differ from a small firm to a medium to a large firm, and also the perspective that Michelle brings from the full spectrum? So kind of curious to hear, Gary, if you'd like to kick us off. I think you're muted.
I got it. One of the things is, we've mentioned it before, law firms were good at a lot of things. And one of the things we're really great at is having mountains of unstructured data, and AI does not like unstructured data. And so we've known about kind of getting things together to get them ready for what we need. AI is now pushing us to do it fast. So that very first bullet point I want to address, we're largely taking a lot of our current people and just kind of pivoting and getting them really trained on AI so that they can retrain others. They can get the policies across to people, things like that. But we are bringing in some data scientists to say, okay, now that we have these AI tools, and this is what we brought up earlier, they're not real good if the data we're pointing at is not clean data. And so that's really foundational to this entire effort of what we're doing. That said, I can tell you that also I'll make a prediction. I think as time goes on, there is going to be a new probably group of people that begin to join certain law firms, which are people that are just their function is AI. They're not just trainers. They're not just IT people. They're people that understand the concepts of AI and can kind of help us move into these, into the future so that attorneys and staff can really be using it as effectively as possible.
Gary, I'm Tom. I'm a mid-sized firm, so I'm a little jealous. We have not had a knowledge management department. We haven't had knowledge management staff. We haven't had really training staff. Our IT group has been handling it as part of their responsibilities, which has pluses and minuses. We have not yet added a data scientist or anything like that. I have been sort of on the edge of sort of saying to people, maybe we should do something here, although frankly, I'm not even sure what we would do. One of the things that I've been thinking about is just sort of a real expert on the tool itself, as opposed to data scientists and sort of how to use the tool. The more I read about the prompt engineering and how important these prompts are and how that all works, do we need an expert on prompts and how the tool works with what we have? But we haven't done it yet. And frankly, we're relying on our junior associates, some of which will be billable because it's being done as part of their job, some of which isn't. So right now we're playing it by ear.
Yeah, I think we probably fall into that same camp, Tom. I think we're not hiring new people. We rely a lot on our IT group to understand and flag issues for us. And then in terms of the actual implementation and usage, I think it's more about all of us wearing additional hats and trying to learn, kind of like I spoke about earlier, learn unique use cases for a given tool and then try and disseminate them to the other attorneys who are performing similar tasks. And it's kind of a constant knowledge share. Oh, guess what I can get AI to do? And it's saving me so much time. It's amazing. You got to try it. And so that's really been our experience too. I do think that it is changing in some respects the role of junior associates who, even just a couple of years ago, the process for compiling, I'm a transactional attorney, the process for compiling governing documents for a private investment fund was extremely manual. And a lot of it is being automated now or can be automated with the use of AI. And then that junior associate role is changing from, okay, actually opening template and deleting bracketed text and adding in numbers to going through and checking the work that the robot did and understanding, okay, why did it make this change? And is that accurate? And what else, what did it forget to change that it should have? And so it's I think in both ways, we're all learning new skills and wearing new hats.
Yeah, Dave, I think that's right in that relying on the younger attorneys are really going to be the drivers of how this gets adopted. Bringing it back to the theme of, more senior attorneys being set in their ways. For the younger attorneys, they don't have 10, 15 years of experience where they have a particular way that they like to do things. They're learning with the benefit of these tools. And so when they develop their workflows, it's going to be alongside the capabilities of these tools. And so we're really relying internally on our attorneys to be those knowledge specialists to help disseminate that information. We also took the committee approach. We have a technology committee, but then we made an AI subcommittee that's been tasked with evaluating and doing all the due diligence on the available tools. And so I imagine and I expect that over time, as they become kind of the knowledge base for how they use these tools, that's going to get disseminated out into the firm. And I do expect that a lot of the more useful aspects are going to be driven by some of the younger attorneys that are going to be experimenting with the capabilities more than more senior attorneys might be.
Yeah, and I'd say as somebody on the outside of a firm, we're seeing firms lean really heavily on technology partners like us and our partners who do implementations and work as consultants on a regular basis and have relationships with firms to provide training and give them kind of those deeper AI insights if they don't have the expertise in-house. Vendors are really becoming experts on workflow and building out those AI-enabled apps and automations, but they have to have those partnerships too with internal SMEs. One of the approaches that we took early on was to bring on an applied AI team who are people who have deep expertise. They worked on workflow automation within law firms' traditional workflow automation. Now they're learning the AI pieces and building out workflows that can be customized by firms because to your point earlier, not every attorney, even in the same practice area, works in the same way. And so you've got to have the ability to crack open some of these pre-built solutions and be able to customize those for your specific workflows. But that's going to take some partnership with somebody who has that building knowledge and then the person who understands your workflow, right? One of the cool things that I've seen is AI itself can be used a little bit for training. Once people get comfortable with these tools, they're finding really interesting ways to use them. So we had one customer, a partner, use our AI assistant to compare the final version of a contract with the version from the associate in order to give that associate feedback on their work and speed up their ability to provide that deeper level of feedback. Another partner used it to help create a personal marketing plan. And so both of those people saved hours of cognitive load on what are kind of more administrative tasks. Then maybe they have a little more time to spend learning some of the deeper capabilities of the AI.
On that point, going back to prompt engineering, one of the tools we use is Harvey. And I noticed, I don't know when it happened, but between when we first got Harvey and now, at some point, a little AI improve button popped up at the bottom of the box where you type in the prompt. And so now when I type in a prompt, I always click the improve button, and then it's like AI rewriting the prompt for me so that I can get a better output from AI. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, we've actually advocated when we're training people in how to use our assistant, is ask the AI how to formulate a prompt for what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And that can yield some really interesting and good results a lot of times.
Well, we're at the top of our time together. We've covered 4 questions today, including data hygiene, user adoption and change management that goes with that, governance, and just now the human element, the staffing and the training changes that need to occur within law firms to make that possible. So we'd like to conclude with giving each of the panelists an opportunity to provide a rapid fire type takeaway for our audience, something that you believe that the audience should be sure to implement, be sure to consider as they're also building their mansion on potential quicksand, and hopefully their quicksand is becoming more firm after listening to this discussion. So before we do that, I just wanted to also thank the International Legal Tech Association, ILTA, and Andrea, and also Kat Freeman from Alston and Bird for organizing this recording session with me. My name, as I mentioned, is Aseet Patel. This topic is very near and dear to me. I practiced for 20 years at a law firm, and I resigned as a partner to start an AI startup because I felt that this is really a turning point in our profession. And I think it's critical to have discussions like this with panelists like you all to make sure that as law firms are implementing these solutions, they're doing it in a responsible way. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to, let's start with Kedar, if you'd like to spend a minute or two to provide a couple takeaways or a takeaway, if you will.
Yeah, I think ensure your onboarding questions, right? Make sure what you want and what you're looking for are clear. Make sure your data discipline, you're following the data discipline, and don't let AI tool in until you know where the data lives, how it is used, and how it is governed.
Michelle, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, I'd say ensure that your expectations are realistic. AI isn't magic. People need to have new and different skills, and it requires a partnership between the firm's workflow experts, the deep knowledge and expertise that is contained in your data, and the technology and access to it.
Great point. Tom, would you like to go next?
Sure. Just pay attention to developments. This stuff is moving so quickly and so fast. Stay involved. Listen to sessions like this. So there are podcasts. There's a lot being written. Pay attention to the developments. And secondly, look for specific use cases. I think if you pick a specific use case that winds up being very helpful to either your existing clients or attracting new clients, think about how with these tools you can address a specific problem rather than just hoping they're general and they fix everything. But think about specific steps that you can take.
Good point. Gary, would you like to go next?
Yeah, my thought is to rethink maybe your training mindset when it comes to AI. Provide as much as possible clear, practical training before anyone gets access, not after they have used it, maybe feel like they might have failed. And make sure that training, like I said earlier, is continuous. It just is you're constantly reinforcing, sharing new ways to use the AI. I also like to focus on their own individual ROI. And I tell them initially that's probably going to be just time saved. You are going to find tasks that took you a while to do, AI can cut down on. I tell them all the time, I can't guarantee AI is ever going to make you a better attorney, but I can guarantee it'll probably make you a more efficient one.
Well said. Well said. Brian, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Aseet. So on the question of how to promote adoption among end users, again, make it personal to the individual attorney. Show them a small way that they can improve their day-to-day practice, how it can make their life easier. Get a small win in the door. Show them that they can trust the tool. Show them how it can make their lives easier, and then you'll build some momentum, and the adoption will snowball from there.
Thanks, Brian. Dave, would you like to close this off?
Absolutely. Thanks, Aseet. I would say adopt a policy, but don't just adopt a policy and put it in a shelf. This is a dynamic world. Things are constantly changing. Adopt a policy, keep it front of mind, change it when you need to change it, but also make sure your attorneys and staff are following the policy. As I always tell my investment advisor clients, it's almost as bad to, maybe even worse, to have a policy and not follow it than to not have a policy at all. And so make sure that you're conducting trainings, that you're communicating what's expected and what's not okay, and keep the policy alive.
Thank you, Dave. And thanks everyone for joining. Have a great day.
Thanks, Aseet.
Thank you.
That was terrific, guys. Thank you.